Well, lights, camera, and an unexpected ad break. If only it wasn't just an ad break. Imagine this. You book a 4 or 5 p.m. show all set to wrap up by 6:30 in the evening, only to be ambushed by 25 minutes of non-stop ads even before the movie actually kicks off. It kicked off at 4:30 in the evening, leaving your plans in shambles and patience thoroughly tested. This is exactly what Abhishek in Bengaluru faced. The Bengaluru Consumer Disputes Redressal Body made it crystal clear time is money and it cannot be exploited, with firm reminders that every viewer's time is precious and no one should be forced to sit idle for almost 30 minutes. They didn't hold back. In a decisive move, PVR-Inox has hit with a total fine of 1.28 lakh rupees. Ladies and gentlemen, PVR-Inox has been slapped a total fine of 1.28 lakh rupees, of which 20,000 rupees for causing mental agony, 8,000 rupees for complaint filing expenses, and all the rest of the amount directed to the Consumer Welfare Fund. Massive.
So what I believe is running or making audience sit there and calling them at particular time just to watch a promotion video for some time. I think that's really bad. There should be a strict action should be taken on that. And I believe the judgment that is given by the court is appropriate also. And one suggestion that I would like to give would be to basically limit the promotion time. For example, just play the ads for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and that should be included in the ticket also.
In a way of advertising, playing advertisements in movie theaters are one of the best ways for marketing. Because kids movie, a company which has sells toys or something which are for kids, it is the best place for them to market their product or something. And if for the time part, a person who can make their own decision. If they want, they can go for the movie late, because in the end everyone has this assumption that the movie starts after 15-20 minutes, so people can make their own choice and go for the movie after 15-20 minutes.
So I'm pretty I know how frustrating it is to go to the movie and you're expecting it to start right now, but then 15-20 minutes is just waiting and waiting and waiting. So I mean, it is very frustrating, I'm sure, but I also believe that ads are very important, because I mean they're important for revenue generation and promotion, obviously, of those movies or anything else. But I feel like the cinemas can either strike a balance. I think maybe like a 5-minute ads is fine, because when you go 5 minutes, it doesn't feel very long, but then they stretch it out for 15 to 20 minutes, which feels too long. So it just, the motivation that you come for, like to watch the movie, that dies down.
So why the endless ads? It all comes down to boosting theatre revenues while keeping ticket prices lower. Big brands pay handsomely for those coveted screen spots, and theatres argue it is part of their public service. With India's cinema ad market valued at 1,000 crore rupees and blockbusters like Pushpa 2 yielding around 100 crore rupees per show, ad reel has become the unsung and sometimes unwelcome star of the movie-going experience. So the next time you're in line waiting for your show, remember those relentless ads aren't just random interruptions. They are part of a big-ticket revenue game where big brands pay dearly for even screen spot. Well, I'm being joined at this point by Adv Abhishek MR. He is the gentleman who has won that case and got a very interesting verdict from the court. Aditya Pratap, who's an advocate, who's also fought a very interesting case about how food is priced in theatres, and also about how food from outside is not allowed. Girish Vankare joins us, who's a senior trade analyst, columnist, as well as former PVR national marketing head, as well as Gautam Chintamani, who's a film historian and author. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. Well, first, let me start with you, Advocate Abhishek MR. Here's the question that everybody is asking. What happened? What made you go to the court? Because in a country like ours, where, you know, people love their movies in theaters, you've not had cases like this. Is it because you're an advocate? Is it what happened? What triggered? Why did you go to the court?
Well, Sneha, why I actually even thought about the thing that going to court and suing a PVR was basically that I left my work in the middle of my work. I booked these tickets for the movie Sam Bahadur because that was really one of the movies to not be missed. So I had scheduled a meeting in my office at 6:30 p.m. in the evening. So I was supposed to reach my office by 6:30 p.m. So I had planned my day in such a way that I would not miss that meeting at 6:30. Because as you know, in Bangalore, from one end to other, if you have to move around, you need to plan your travel because of the chaotic traffic and all that. So I missed my meeting at 6:30 p.m. And this was completely due to the unlawful playing of a series of commercial advertisements for nearly 25 minutes. This was completely unacceptable, and I somewhere felt that this was, we as consumers were taken for a ride. This was complete exploitation of our own money, our own time. And on the one hand, they're charging from all these big companies, and on the other hand, they're also charging from us a reasonable sum of money, assuring us to provide, a luxurious watch. But what's happening at the end of the day, they are encroaching upon our time. Every minute counts, be it a lawyer, be it a doctor, or even a common citizen. Time is of the essence. Now the time which is lost cannot be gotten back to me. So this is when I decided I will take PVR to the court and seek for an appropriate redressal.
Were you shocked? Were you shocked with what the court said? Were you taken aback with the kind of compensation that you were told to be given? Were you taken aback with how the court responded to your petition?
Of course, Sneha. If you see the recent trends in consumer commissions granting compensation, it's not huge. It is, I would not say meager, but it is decent. It is not huge. But here, because there was a public intent, there was a social concern, there was a cause here. Because not just me as a consumer, several lakhs of people who visit the show, including you, including all the people who are sitting there, I'm sure, would have faced this issue at some point of their time. Because waiting unconditionally for ads to get over is completely annoying at times. So as a consumer, I thought, let me take PVR to the court and address my grievance. And of course, there was a right, there was a violation, so there was a clear case made out.
Okay, that's interesting, Abhishek. Let me just get in Gautam Chintamani. Gautam Chintamani, put this in perspective for us. Of course, I haven't come across a petition like this in court before. I have not heard this kind of a redressal before either. But if you look at how theaters function, about how advertisements are, they get 20 to 25 minutes to even half an hour at sometimes, if you look at what plays out in the beginning, and then even at intervals, at sometimes it can even go well beyond that as well. Put this in context for us. How different is it in India? How different is it abroad? Is it way off the mark in India? Do we just have no value for time, or is it just the commitments, the commercials, and the money that's involved? Can you bring a larger perspective for us to this? Oh, Mr. Chintamani, I think we totally lost you. You lost your, there's a power cut at your place, so we'll try and fix that. Girish Vankade, why don't you take that question? Put this in perspective for us. Why 25 minutes of commercial before a movie is even beginning? 25 minutes of a commercial before a movie is beginning, and sometimes in between the movies also, you would have another few minutes of commercials. How do you look at what the court has said?
Thank you for asking. The court, what is said is welcome. It is acceptable, and it was the need of an hour, because everybody talks about their precious time, and there is no way that we can waste it. Now what we are talking about 25 minutes. This 25 minutes, that with every cinema, there are three major verticals. First is box office, second is F&B, and third is on-screen advertising. So this on-screen advertising, which we see on the screen of the products, they are also affiliated with the off-screen advertising, which is on the plasma screens and which is in the standees. So these all cinema chains, they do a yearly deals with the various brands, and most of the time the big ticket films like Sam Bahadur or Singham or Pushpa, every brand wants to have that visibility. So in that context there will be always a rush, and there is a lot of clutter of all these brands who want the visibility with a big ticket release. At that time cinema fall prey to these all brands, and they take consumers on ride, of course for ride, because that time they make more, they accommodate more brands, and that consumes at least 25 to 30 minutes, which is definitely not at all acceptable. So it is purely business for them, but for a consumer it is his precious time. So he doesn't know that why he is there. If it is 6 p.m. show, if he is sitting there only up to 6:30, it is wastage of his time.
This is very fascinating, Aditya. Girish Vankade, you are actually saying this is business, but bad optics for consumer. But business can always be done in different ways. They're always, if it's supposedly that consumer is king, it's where viewers decide the fate of a movie and so on and so forth. And India loves its movies, so obviously every brand wants visibility. But then crop up the prices, prop it up, let those who have the money, let them pay. Is this sheer disregard for a viewer who loves to watch their movies at the theatre? Is it just sheer disregard and disrespect?
Exactly. I will say it is sheer disregard, because we need to respect the time of the consumer, which is not been done. And this voice of Abhishek, which is just one voice, but there was always uneasiness regarding this. People were talking about this, but somebody has to be whistleblower. And what he did, and whatever the verdict has been and the result has been, it is obviously there to have certain changes now. People in cinema halls, the programmers, the sales guys, they will have to sit there and take it very serious about it. Yeah. They will have to take very serious note of this.
Gautam Chintamani, would you, I asked you this question earlier. Could you put this in context for us? Across the world, is this way off? Is this how movies are seen abroad? Is this the kind of time intervals that we are seeing for advertisements in theatres abroad? How does it work across countries?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And it's very interesting for you to host this show and to hear these voices, Girish and Abhishek's voice. I'll give you a context. Many years ago when Alfred Hitchcock made Psycho, he put a huge poster, and Hitchcock was the brand for his own films. So the standee outside the cinema halls and in the run-up to the release featured a life-size cutout of Alfred Hitchcock pointing towards his watch and saying that nobody will be allowed to enter the cinema hall once the film starts. So even if somebody was late for 10 seconds or 20 seconds, they were not allowed to enter. Now, this is one aspect, that you're playing ads in the cinema hall, which is understandable. What was fascinating is not just what Abhishek did. It's been on everybody's mind. Surely it's been on my mind. Last week I booked a ticket. I reached the cinema hall halfway across the city I was visiting, and I wanted to see a re-release of an old film. And they cancelled the show after I reached there, saying that not enough tickets were sold. So, it was really, really...
That's okay, if you can go ahead. All right, I think I almost know the movie that he wanted to go and watch, Mr. Chintamani. I think, and that ambience of the light suddenly going off could be quite similar to that movie itself. Okay, I believe Mr. Gautam Chintamani is back with us. I have a vague idea which movie you did want to go and watch, but I don't want to take it on air.
So, it was very interesting because we were trying to rally up people, and I even offered to buy 10 tickets. It was a discounted rate, so that was the minimum number. But what was fascinating is to hear Girish to say that the ads that the cinema hall is playing on the large screen are the same ones which are playing elsewhere in the cinema hall. which means that you have a package deal to play certain number of ads at certain display. If Pushpa is a big film and people want to, make the most of advertising during that time, why don't the cinema halls rake up the prices like you said and just give that 10-second slot or 1 minute slot? Now imagine that if everybody is there on time and you have only 1 minute of advertisement time and your product is there, that's also impactful. But I think it's sheer disregard for our time. Even not just ads in the beginning, but even some cinema halls, the way they abruptly stop a film on the pretext of the interval, even though the interval is not there, also breaks the experience for the viewer. So there is a lot of disregard, and I think this is the first big step where a court has ruled in the favor of the audience or the viewer, ticket paying member of the audience. I mean, cinemas across the world, especially India, they go crazy saying people are paying big money to come to a cinema hall to watch. We have to entertain them. So please leave your logical mind behind. They go to all these lengths to highlight the viewer is so important. And this is what you do with the viewer. So I think it's very interesting. And I would really like to see how cinema halls change their strategy now.
If at all they do change. In fact, Aditya Pratap, before I come to you, I want to come to you, but just give me a minute. Girish Vankade, get in at this point. Here's a question that I want to ask you. So if you are saying that advertisements all are part of a package that runs a year long and that's how it really goes about in theaters, how does it work in other contexts in other countries? For example, I was talking to somebody who recently watched a cinema in London, and that person was saying there was just a 10 minutes of advertisement in the beginning before the movie began and nothing after that, not more than that. So what's the average? 5 minutes, 10 minutes versus what would be like a half an hour, 40 minutes of an advertisement. How does it work across cultures? Would you have an idea about that?
In India, we take audience for granted. There will be 30 minutes, 35 minutes, in some cases 40 minutes as well. So in other countries, there is always an embargo of 10 minutes or 15 minutes and not more than that. At the most, it could be 12 minutes or 13 minutes. Like on television, we have always, for a 30-minute television show, the point that FCT, free commercial time, is 8 minutes. Similar to that, every country has a certain adherence to 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 12 minutes. In our country, we don't have anything like that. We just depend on how big is the film. If there is a big film, big ticket film like Pushpa, we will flood it with so many ads that by the time your film starts, you are already exhausted with the ads. That is how we do here.
I mean, that's true. Aditya Pratap, come in at this point. There's a joke that we often crack that before the movie starts, my popcorn is over. I mean, that's a joke everybody in my family knows about. You, however, have taken this very seriously.
Absolutely. So, if you may recall, many years back, I had appeared for the petitioner in the food and multiplexes cases. At that time, the multiplex owners had said that your ticket to the cinema hall is a contract, and behind that ticket it is clearly written that you should not get your food inside the cinema hall. Today I will use the same argument of the multiplex lobby. I will say, if you say that the ticket is a contract, then what does the ticket say? The ticket says that so and so movie will begin at so and so time. But do you start the feature presentation at that time? Not at all. You start the feature presentation after 20 minutes. Until then, you play ads after ads, which is not part of the purchase contract, which is not part of the contract. So on one hand, you say the ticket is a contract. Now, if the ticket is taken as a contract, you are committing misrepresentation, because you are falsely representing, you are misrepresenting that the feature presentation, which is the movie, will start at a certain time, when in reality, it will start 20 minutes later. Number two, when you have a contractual relationship with the viewer, what is the dominant purpose of that relationship? The dominant purpose of that relationship is the exhibition of the cinematograph film. It is not an advertisement. And here, you're representing to the consumer that the movie will start at so and so time. He books the ticket, and then you are effectively either you're defrauding him, or rather it is an active case of misrepresentation, and the customer does not have the option to even void the contract also, because he's in the hall, he's sitting and the ads are playing. Thirdly, we also have the licensing regulations which come into play also, because when a cinematograph film is being, because in such a case, ultimately it fatigues the people. When people are in a cinema hall, they are in a controlled environment for 2.5, 3 hours. It is the limit of the endurance, limit of the ability, and you are actually influencing public health in a manner by extending the duration of the stay inside the cinema hall. Finally, you may also note that as the complainant very clearly pointed out, it is a wastage of his time. And as the economy grows, as the time passes, the Consumer Court very clearly held that this is a case of deficiency in service, because number one, see, tomorrow if an airline leaves late, when an airline leaves late, then Consumer Court awards damages because the flight did not leave on time. Same way, if you do not start the movie on time, then the complainant gets a valid cause of action to claim damages, as well as for deficiency in service and an unfair trade practice because you are misrepresenting the start of the movie time. And finally, on an economic note, now what is it's an ad break of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You've made it half an hour ad breaks. What is the purpose in that case? Why don't you make the cinema hall, if it's all about showing the ads, then you make the movie exhibition free for the people. Because ultimately the advertising sponsor is paying for everything. So precise, and one more important thing. Yes, because when they cut the film, like foreign films do not have an ad break. When you are cutting the film and inserting, then you might also run the risk of going into collision with the provisions of the Cinematograph Act. Because when that foreign film has received a CBFC certification, you are forcefully stopping
that's
it.
That's definitely not happened now, Aditya. They've taken this pretty lightly and pretty easily, saying that this happens across Indian theatres. So that's definitely something that's not gotten them into trouble. But Advocate Abhishek, to what Aditya Pratap is saying, let me ask you this question. After this verdict, have cinema theatres, have stakeholders reached out to you? Is there any kind of conversation that's happened? Anything that's happened since then?
No, Sneha, nothing of that sort, because the order was passed only on 12th of this month. So as per the order, they have 30 days time to deposit the payment. Otherwise, it will be attracted by 10% interest as per the order. So as of now, they haven't approached. I'm sure they will not approach. They might be thinking on going for an appeal before the State Commission, but I'm not sure what chances do they stand, because the evidences are very clear and we have CD recordings, everything, which clearly says 17 commercial advertisements were played between 4:05 and 4:28. So I don't see them having any chance to go for an appeal. Even if they do so, I think it'll be a futile attempt.
Gautam Chintamani, do you think this is going to act as a precedent? Do you think now the theatres will have to reimagine how they ally with their stakeholders, business partners, advertisers? Is this going to steer in the change, or this could be seen as a one-off case?
This is a good question, Sneha. If you look at the other precedents, the earlier orders, there was only one particular order which was made, that was regarding the damages for mental agony or, mental distress and undue hardship caused to the complainant. But now, after the advent of the Consumer Protection Act 2019, as per Section 39G, there is ample power vested in the Consumer Commission to levy penalties, that is in the form of punitive damage, what we call legally. It's a punitive damage which the Commission can levy on the company or any corporate body as such, to ensure that this sort of exploitation of consumer right doesn't take place. So what I am seeing further, the way to go would be that, definitely if PVR needs to be on a safer side, definitely they have to adhere to this order, not just PVR, any other cinema for that matter. Okay. If they do not adhere, then there would be a double penalty for violation.
Mr. Chintamani, would you agree with this? Are you willing to see this as one of those moments, pivotal moments that may really force in a change? Or do you see this, Mr. Chintamani, as, say, one-off case where, with the PVR, where this incident happened, or and not really in relation to other theatres? How do you see this?
So, I was hearing Abhishek very, very intently. I think there are 2-3 things which need to be taken into account here. One, it has happened with the biggest movie chain, if not in the world, then in India. So whatever they do is probably going to set the industry standard. So it's not like that you don't have ads, because I remember a time when you used to have the upcoming trailers play, and that used to be fun. So if I am sitting there and watching trailers for 20 minutes, I may still enjoy that. Not only ads. But I think what will happen now if they don't make any change is that this is going to inspire a lot of people. I mean, I for one am now intrigued. Next time I'm going to count how many number of ads I see. uh, there will be a lot of complainants if nothing is done. I think for a bit,
That's
uh,
true.
I think for a bit they will be, I mean, for the want of a better term, a little well behaved, the theater chains. We will have a good time watching films. I don't see this going to be just one of those incidents, because it has happened to a very big chain. And like Abhishek said, that I mean, there's a lot of evidence. And if a consumer court, or as I understand, I mean, this is what you're going to appeal against, is going to be very difficult. So I think they will make it very clear, and I think they will shift this cost to the brands who can very well afford it. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. 10 minutes tak nobody will have a problem. I mean, from whatever I've been hearing, 10 minutes is fine. People will take their time. And I would really like to see what PVR does, because it'll set the industry standard.
That's an interesting point. Last question to you, Girish Vankade, if I can ask you. Is there a chance that tickets that are being sold, the timings that are being put out now would be for the movies for when they start? Can that even happen, or is that too far-fetched?
No, that is what is a directive from the Honorable Court. But yes, if they will start also putting up the timing of the exact duration of the film, the timing of the start of the film, and the number of minutes they are using to put that ad, that will be wonderful. Because PVR is already in the process of reducing the ads. That is for sure. That is what I know. But as we know that when there are big ticket films, there is always a cluster. There are a lot of advertisers who want to come because that is the captive audience, that is the captive consumer for the brand. And that time, the big chain, or not only PVR, but every chain in the country, every cinema in the country, they fall prey to this, and they take it the way they can accommodate more ads.
Sneha, if I may just add to
Well,
what Mr.
between
Giri said, if I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So Mr.
Yes,
Giri
please, go
said
ahead.
that there are no
Please go
particular
ahead, Mr.
guidelines
Abhishek.
or rules, pertaining to how many minutes or what's the duration of ad, how many ads should be played and all that. So with respect to this, there are clear guidelines laid down by CBFC, Central Board of Film Certification. The guidelines clearly says that PSAs, what is called the public service announcements, cannot be more than 2 minutes. One announcement cannot be more than 2 minutes, and it cannot stretch beyond 10 minutes. That is prior to the start of the movie. So prior to the start of the movie, only they can play for 10 minutes, and each announcement can be of 2 minutes. This is the law laid down by the CBFC guidelines. And prior to these PSAs, can these commercial advertisements or any other trailers fit in? So this is what the law seems pertaining to that. Yeah.
That's interesting, and that's definitely something around which these industries, these theatre owners really can work their way around. 2 to 10 minutes is a very, very long duration, and ads can definitely be fit around all of these very easily. But here's the sum up of all of it, I guess, between the business lobby and the vested interests, as well as viewers who really make them or break them. I think it's time in India to change the psyche and start respecting the viewers who not only give their time and their money, but also their heart to everybody involved in a country like India. And it takes a lot in today's time to really take those hours out to reach a theatre and to get back. And truly cinema lovers who want that theatre experience only would be venturing out. But thank you very much to our panelists. A very offbeat topic, but I think a lot of people would be wanting to know how conveniently can they be watching their movies, and if there's going to be any difference. Gautam Chintamani, thank you very much for joining us. Aditya Pratap, thank you very much for joining us. Girish Vankade, thank you for your time. And of course, Advocate Abhishek MR, thank you very much for joining us. It's time for a very short break. On the other side, all the latest news that's been happening through the day.